Program Director, Minister Ibrahim Patel, Your Excellency President Luis Lula da Silva, Your Excellency Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Honorable Ministers and business leaders, and Your Excellency President of the New Development Bank, Ms. Dilma Rousseff. I greet you all, and it's a great honor to have this opportunity to participate in this leaders' session of the BRICS Forum. The BRICS group of countries exists not only to strengthen government-to-government relations, but also to forge stronger ties between the peoples of our 5 nations. It is for this reason that several bodies have been established since the BRICS was formed to enable cooperation across society, be it in business, be it in political parties, be it in the social sector, and also in the sporting sector. The BRICS Business Council is a vital and vibrant platform for strengthening economic ties between our respective countries and in forging common perspectives on inclusive economic growth and development. The changes that have taken place in BRICS economies over the past decade have done much to transform the shape of the global economy. Together, the BRICS countries make up a quarter of the global economy. They account for 1/5 of global trade and are home to more than 40% of the world's population. This agglomeration of these 5 countries has a major impact on various aspects of the global activity and life. As we celebrate the 15th anniversary of BRICS, trade between BRICS countries totaled some $162 billion last year. Foreign investment has played an important role in the growth of BRICS economies. Total annual foreign direct investment into BRICS countries is 4 times greater than it was 20 years ago. However, the new wave of protectionism and subsequent impact of unilateral measures that are incompatible with WTO rules undermine the global economic growth and development. We therefore need to reaffirm our position that economic growth must be underpinned by transparency, by inclusiveness. It must be compatible with a multilateral trading system that supports a developmental agenda, the type of developmental agenda that the 5 countries that are members of BRICS have embraced right from the onset. We require a fundamental reform of the global financial institutions so that they can be more agile and responsive to the challenges facing developing economies. In this respect, the New Development Bank, established by BRICS countries in 2015, is leading the way. Since its formation, it has demonstrated its ability to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development in emerging economies without conditionalities. earlier, before coming into this session, I was speaking to the president of the New Development Bank, and she was outlining to me how ready and willing the New Development Bank is in terms of supporting the development agendas of various countries. And we applaud this, and we appreciate this. BRICS economies have emerged as powerful engines of global growth. Yet the rapid economic, technological, social changes underway create new risks for areas such as employment, equality, as well as poverty in many of the BRICS countries. It is quite heartwarming to hear you as business people, as one listened to Mr. Chabalala's report, also focusing on issues such as poverty reduction and elimination, and inequality as well. It isn't often that you hear such very positive and forward-looking messages from the business community. So it's wonderful to be in a forum under the aegis of BRICS that you as business leaders are in tune with the developmental agenda that needs to be pursued to lift the people who live in BRICS countries and beyond out of the ravages of poverty and inequality. We therefore call on the business community to join hands with us to identify solutions to these and many other challenges affecting our respective economies. From a South African perspective, there is massive untapped potential for investment in our country and indeed on the African continent as well. In recognition of this potential, the theme for this 15th BRICS Summit is BRICS in Africa, a partnership for mutually accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism. Africa is a continent of great opportunity in industrialization process in a variety of sectors. This continent is rich in the critical minerals that will drive business success in the 21st century. The continent has resources of lithium, vanadium, cobalt, platinum, palladium, nickel, copper, rare earth minerals, rhodium, and many others. And these are the minerals that abound and are driving economic activity across the world. African countries have made it clear that the investors of choice are those who will come and invest in our continent, but also process the resources here, close to source, so that African countries do not export rock and sand, but export finished products as we would like to do. We are developing stronger regional value chains that will connect a number of African countries, providing investors with diversity, with strength, as well as with resilience. The African Continental Free Trade Area creates a single market that is expected to grow to 1.7 billion people and nearly $7 trillion in consumer and business spending by 2030. The success of the African Continental Free Trade Area will require a massive investment in infrastructure. We need to mobilize the substantial financing that is needed to build the roads, the ports, the rail, energy and telecommunications network, that will enable industrialization and trade. It is also pleasing to hear that you, as the business community, you also see this area as opportunities that you can invest in. Growth in African economies will be driven in the main by small and medium enterprises. This requires focused as well as effective support to these businesses. It is important that specific financing be directed also to women-owned businesses so that they can harness the benefits of the continental free trade area. And we in Africa, as we seek to grow and develop, we are focusing on the empowerment of the women of our continent who have been held back through the years of colonialism, and in our case, through the years of apartheid, through protocols and laws. And we are saying we need to free the women of our continent so that they can trade, so that they can be in business and grow the economies of our various countries. Africa has a young, digitally connected and urbanizing population, a population which provides a stable workforce for companies in the future. The investment in skills development is continuing to grow. These factors all position Africa as the next frontier of productivity and growth. The BRICS countries have an opportunity to contribute to and participate in Africa's growth story. This can be achieved through greater cooperation in areas such as infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing, new energy, and the digital economy. I was pleased to hear that these are also areas that you as business people are focusing on. South Africa has an important position in growing the African market, facilitated by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and other free trade agreements. South Africa's industrial strength, our mineral endowments, and our large market opportunities provides a compelling value proposition for companies wanting to establish their businesses here. South Africa has significant industrial capacity, with Africa's most advanced industrial innovation and fabrication base. Firms that have invested here recognize that South Africa has deep local capital markets and strong financial systems. We have a diverse and sophisticated economy, and this country possesses world-class infrastructure, skills, abundant natural resources, industrial clusters, and a host of incentives to support investment. And many investment and partnership opportunities exist in renewable energy, in infrastructure, in aquaculture, in ICT, automotives, pharmaceuticals, and advanced manufacturing, amongst others. It is clear from the report that we have just received that this has been a very productive business forum. And I'd like, as I end, to commend the BRICS Business Council, the respective ministers from the BRICS countries and officials, and all business leaders who have made a meaningful contribution for the success of this business forum, and to have all of you, almost 1,500, I'm told, to have this, what I see as a very successful business forum. I sincerely hope that your participation in this BRICS Business Forum will yield the productive outcomes that are required for us to catapult BRICS economies towards a more equitable and accelerated growth. In 2 hours or so, the BRICS leaders will sit together in a retreat to discuss a number of BRICS-related matters, and one of those is the expansion of BRICS. A number of countries, some of which are represented here, are seeking to be part of this BRICS family. And we appreciate that. It goes to show that the BRICS family is growing in its importance, in its stature, and also in its influence in the world. And we will be taking into account the various desires of various countries to be part of BRICS. So we hope to take into account the report of your discussions here as well as we consider the way forward with BRICS. Your participation here really strengthens the BRICS story. It confirms that BRICS is an important player in the geopolitical and economic architecture of the world. And so we hope that it will continue to be so. Thank you very much for participating. We thank you.
Your Excellencies, heads of states and government from the BRICS member states, the honorable ministers present from BRICS member states, ladies and gentlemen of the media, welcome to this session, the session that will present the Johannesburg Declaration of the 15th BRICS Summit. President Ramaphosa will, as chair of the summit and of BRICS, will kick off with the opening statements, and thereafter the President will invite his counterparts and colleagues from the BRICS member states to also present their statement. I'd like to now invite President Ramaphosa to kick us off with the media statement. Mr. President.
Thank you, Program Director, Your Excellencies, and various guests who are here with us, members of the media, and leaders of various organizations. It is a pleasure to present to you two matters. The first is to inform and advise you that the BRICS leaders in the 15th BRICS Summit have over the past 2 days had occasion to have discussions both in a retreat form as well as in a proper official summit. And in the course of those discussions, have reached a conclusion to adopt the Johannesburg II Declaration. It's a declaration that encompasses and covers the various issues that the leaders had to decide on. These matters have been in discussion for over a year in various iterations and meetings being prepared by our Sherpas and ministers in various meetings. And in the end, the declaration has now been adopted as Declaration 2, Johannesburg Declaration 2, and is adopted. And now we come to the media statement, which I will read out, and thereafter each one of the BRICS leaders will make a statement. We have successfully concluded the 15th BRICS Summit yesterday. It is the first BRICS Summit to be hosted in person since COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent global travel restrictions. Leading up to the summit, there was a wide-ranging BRICS business forum attended by some 1,500 business people from BRICS countries as well as from other countries from around the globe. This business forum was aimed at attracting investment, promoting collaboration, and showcasing opportunities within South Africa, the African continent, and indeed BRICS countries as well. We had an opportunity to receive a report from the President of the New Development Bank, Dilma Rousseff, on the vision and the role of the bank and the role that it intends to play to support infrastructure and sustainable development in Africa and in the Global South. We celebrated the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the BRICS Business Council and welcomed their report and the subsequent recommendations that they made to the leaders. We also welcomed the work of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance in their first in-person engagement with the BRICS leaders. We particularly welcomed the participation of youth representatives in the summit. We endorsed our expectations for the BRICS economic partnership to generate tangible benefits for our communities and deliver viable solutions for common challenges faced by the Global South. We shared our vision of BRICS as a champion of the needs and concerns of the peoples of the Global South. These include the need for beneficial economic growth, sustainable development, and the reform of multilateral systems. We reiterate our commitment to inclusive multilateralism and upholding international law, including the purposes and principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter. We are concerned about ongoing conflicts in many parts of the world. We stress our commitment to the peaceful resolution of differences and disputes through dialogue and inclusive consultation. The summit noted that an unbalanced recovery from the hardships of COVID-19 pandemic is exacerbating inequality across the world. We encourage multilateral financial institutions and international organizations to play a constructive role in building global consensus on economic policies. We have noted that there is global momentum for the use of local currencies, alternative financial arrangements, and alternative payment systems. As BRICS, we are ready to explore opportunities for improving the stability, reliability, and fairness of the global financial architecture. In this regard, BRICS leaders have tasked their finance ministers and central bank governors, as appropriate, to consider the issue of local currencies, payment instruments, and platforms, and to report back to the BRICS leaders by the next summit. This summit reaffirmed the importance of BRICS people-to-people exchanges in enhancing mutual understanding, friendship, and cooperation. The summit appreciates the progress made over the last year in the fields of media, culture, education, sports, arts, youth, civil society, and academic exchanges. We adopted the Johannesburg II Declaration, which reflects key BRICS messages on matters of global economic, financial, and political importance. It demonstrates the shared values and common interests that underlie our mutual beneficial cooperation as the 5 BRICS countries. BRICS itself is a diverse group of nations. It is an equal partnership of countries that have differing views but have a shared vision for a better world. As the 5 BRICS countries, we have reached agreement on the guiding principles, standards, criteria, and procedures of the BRICS expansion process, which has been in discussion for quite a while. We have consensus on the first phase of this expansion process, and other phases will follow. We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024. We value the interests of other countries in building a partnership with BRICS. We have tasked our foreign ministers to further develop the BRICS partner country model and a list of prospective partner countries and report by the next summit. Today, we will be hosting leaders from Africa and the Global South in the BRICS Africa Outreach and the BRICS Plus Dialogue. This is so that we can have an inclusive dialogue on key issues affecting developing economies and identify actions that we can take together towards a more equitable, inclusive, and representative world. May I conclude by thanking the leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, and China, together with their delegations, for participating in this most successful 15th BRICS Summit held in Johannesburg, South Africa. Through this summit, BRICS has embarked on a new chapter in its efforts to build a world that is fair, a world that is just, a world that is also inclusive and prosperous. I thank you. I'm now going to ask President Lula da Silva, President of Brazil, to be the first to speak, and thereafter I'll ask the others to follow. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank especially President Ramaphosa and his team for the very warm hosting of the BRICS meeting and for the first face-to-face summit meeting at BRICS. I also would like to congratulate to the team of the foreign affairs ministers for all the extraordinary work that they did to conduct and the production of this declaration that we just signed here. The last time that that I participated in a BRICS meeting was in 2010, and I am deeply, very well impressed with the maturity of the BRICS and with the results that we managed to reach. In 2011,
conferiu maior
representatividade geográfica ao
regiões que mais crescem. Muitos alegavam que somos demasiadamente diferentes para forjar uma visão comum. A experiência, contudo, demonstra o contrário. Nossa diversidade fortalece a luta por uma nova ordem que acomoda a pluralidade econômica, geográfica e política do século XXI. Neste mundo em transição, os BRICS nos oferecem uma fonte de soluções criativas para os desafios que
solutions for the challenges that we
a relevância
face.
dos
The
BRICS
relevance of the
é
BRICS
confirmada
is
pelo interesse
confirmed by the
crescente que
growing
outros países
interest of other
demonstram
countries
de
demonstrate
adesão
to
ao
join
agrupamento.
our group.
Entre os vários resultados
Amongst
da
the many
cúpula de
results
hoje,
of the summit meeting of
ressalta a
today, I
ampliação
could
dos
stress
BRICS
the
com a
enhancement
inclusão de
of the
novos
BRICS,
membros.
including new members.
Como indicou o presidente
As President
Ramaphosa,
Ramaphosa
é
just
com
said,
satisfação que o
it's with
Brasil
great
dá
pleasure that
boas-vindas
Brazil
aos
gives the
BRICS,
welcome to the
à Arábia
BRICS,
Saudita,
to Saudi
à
Arabia,
Argentina,
to Argentina,
ao
to the new
Egito,
members, to Egypt,
aos Emirados
to
Árabes
the
Unidos,
United
à
Arab
Etiópia
Emirates, to
e ao Irã.
Ethiopia, and to
Agora,
Iran. Now,
o PIB dos BRICS
the GDP of the
eleva-se
BRICS is
para
going up to
36% do PIB global
37% of the
em
world
paridade de
GDP
poder de
in terms
compra
of
e
purchasing power and
46% da
46%
população
in terms
mundial.
of the world
O
population.
BRICS
BRICS
continuará
will
aberto a
continue
novos
open
candidatos
to new
e para isso
members,
aprovamos
and for
também
that we
critérios e
also
procedimentos
approved
para futuras
criteria
adesões.
procedures for future
Aprovamos
members.
ainda a
We
criação de
also
grupo
the
de
creation
trabalho
of a working
para
group
estudar a
so
adoção
that
de
we
uma
can
moeda
study
de
the adoption
referência
of
dos BRICS.
a unit
Essa
currency
medida
as reference for the
poderá
BRICS.
aumentar
This
nossa
measure could
opção de
increase our
pagamento
options for
e
means of
reduzir
payment
nossas
and reduce our vulnerabilities.
ressaltar
I would like to
igualmente
stress
a decisão
that decision
relacionada à
that was
reforma
made
da
to the
governança
reform
global,
of the global
especialmente
governance,
em
and especially in
relação ao Conselho de
relationship to the
Segurança da
UN Security Council.
Por fim,
And last but not the
dedico uma
least, I would
mensagem
dedicate a
especial
special
ao querido
message
Alberto Fernandes,
to
presidente
my
da
dear
Argentina,
Alberto
e grande
Fernandes,
amigo
President
do
of
Brasil
Argentina, great friend
e
of
do
Brazil
mundo em
and
geral.
of the developing world.
Continuaremos
We will
avançando
continue
lado
to
a lado
move forward side
com
by
nossos
side
irmãos
with our
argentinos em mais
brothers
fórum
Argentinos in
internacional.
another international
Seguiremos
forum.
defendendo
We will
temas
continue to advocate
com
themes
impacto direto na
with direct
qualidade de vida
impact
de
of the
nossas
quality of lives of our
como o
peoples,
combate à fome,
as fighting
à
hunger,
pobreza, à
poverty,
desigualdade
and
e à
inequality,
promoção do
and the
desenvolvimento
promotion
sustentável.
of sustainable development.
Promoveremos a
We will
superação de
promote
todas
the
as
overcome
formas de
of all
desigualdade
ways
que
of
existem
inequality that exists in the world, and that the
continue
BRICS will
sendo força
continue to be a driving
de uma ordem
force
mundial
of a
mais
new
justa
international order that will
e ator
have more failures
indispensável
and an indispensable
na promoção da
player
paz,
to promote
do
peace,
multilateralismo
to promote
e na
multilateralism,
defesa
and in the
internacional.
defense
Muito
of
obrigado.
international order and rule. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, dear friends, dear colleagues, just like other participants of today's event, I would like to thank our South African friends for the efforts they have made during our joint work. I
Должен
appreciate their
отметить,
efforts,
что,
and I would like to note,
как выяснилось, эта работа была непростой,
as
и
it turned out, this was a challenging
Рамафоза проявил
work, and
удивительное
President
дипломатическое
Ramaphosa
искусство
showed
при согласовании
unique
всех позиций, в
diplomatic
том числе
mastery
касающихся
as we
расширения
negotiated all the
BRICS.
positions, including
Только
when it
что
comes to BRICS
бразильский
expansion.
коллега, президент
Just now,
Лула Сильва,
Brazilian counterpart,
некоторые
President
моменты
Lula da
отметил
Silva,
наиболее важные
highlighted
для
most
всех нас,
important
среди которых я
aspects for all of us, and I
выделил
would
бы,
like to
конечно,
especially
вопросы
emphasize the issues
расчетной валюты единой.
for
Это сложный вопрос, но
mutual
мы
currency
так или
settlement,
иначе
united
будем
currency
двигаться
issue.
по
This is a
решению
challenging
этих
task.
проблем.
Nevertheless,
И
we will move towards resolution.
второе, это
And the
касается
second thing that I would like to mention,
организация
it has
расчетов
to
между
do
нашими странами в
with
сфере экономической
ensuring
деятельности.
settlements between our
Хотел
countries
бы
in economic
поздравить
terms.
новых
I would
наших
like
членов,
to
которые
congratulate new
в
BRICS members
полноформатном масштабе будут работать
the
в
full
следующем
membership.
году.
They will
И
assume
хочу
membership
заверить
next
всех коллег,
year.
что мы будем
Let me
продолжать
assure
то
all
дело,
of the
которое
colleagues that
мы
we'll
сегодня с
keep
вами
up
начали по расширению влияния БРИКС в мире, имею в виду налаживание практической работы с новыми членами организации и с теми, кто будет работать в сфере БРИКС в качестве аутрич, с нашими партнерами, которые так или иначе уделяют внимание сотрудничеству с нашей организацией и хотели бы с нами вместе работать. Мы относимся к этому с вниманием и большим уважением и обязательно наладим эту работу. Конечно, в контакте со всеми партнерами будем советоваться, как эту работу организовать, и в ходе этих совместных дискуссий на уровне министров иностранных дел, других ведомств, выстроим соответствующий регламент с тем, чтобы роль и значение БРИКС в мире продолжала расти. Большое спасибо.
Excellencies,
मीडिया के साथियों,
friends from the media,
नमस्कार।
Namaskar.
सबसे पहले मैं
First of all,
राष्ट्रपति
I would like to commend my friend President Ramaphosa for the successful organization of this summit. I congratulate him for this. I am very pleased that this three-day meeting has had many positive outcomes.
हमने ब्रिक्स की 15वीं
On
वर्षगांठ
the 15th anniversary of BRICS, we have taken the important decision to expand it. As I had said yesterday, India
ब्रिक्स की सदस्यता में विश्वास
has
विस्तार का
always
हमेशा से
fully
पूरी तरह
supported
समर्थन
the
किया है।
expansion of BRICS membership.
भारत का ये मत रहा है
India has always
कि
believed
नए सदस्यों के
that
जुड़ने से
the addition of
BRICS
new members
एक संगठन के रूप में
will
मजबूत
further strengthen
तथा
BRICS as an
हमारे
organization,
सभी साझा
and
प्रयासों
it
को
will give
एक
our
नया
shared
बल
efforts
देने वाला
a
हो।
new impetus.
इस कदम से
This
विश्व
will
के अनेक
also
देशों का
strengthen
मल्टीपोलर वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर
the
में
belief of
विश्वास
many countries in
और
the world
सुदृढ़ होगा।
in a multipolar
मुझे
world
खुशी है
order. I am
कि
pleased
हमारी टीम्स
that
ने
our
मिलकर
teams have together
एक्सपांशन के
agreed on
Guiding
the guiding
principles,
principles,
standards, criteria और प्रोसीड्यूर पर
and procedures
सहमति बनाई है
for the expansion.
और इनके आधार पर
And on the basis of
आज हम
these,
अर्जेंटीना,
we have agreed
इजिप्ट,
to welcome into
Iran,
BRICS Argentina,
Saudi Arab,
Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran,
और यूएई का
Saudi Arabia, and the
ब्रिक्स में
UAE.
स्वागत करने के लिए सहमत हुए हैं। सबसे पहले
First of all,
मैं इन देशों के
I
लीडर्स
would like to
और
convey
वहाँ के नागरिकों
my
को
heartfelt congratulations to
बधाई
the
देता हूँ।
leaders and people
मुझे
of
विश्वास
these
है
countries.
कि इन देशों के साथ
I'm
मिलकर
confident that
हम
together
अपने
with
सहयोग
these
को
countries we
एक
will
नई
be
गति
able to infuse
और
new
नई ऊर्जा
momentum
देंगे।
and new energy into our
भारत के इन
cooperation.
सभी देशों के साथ
India has had
बहुत ही गहरे संबंध
very
हैं।
deep
बहुत
and
ही
historic
ऐतिहासिक संबंध
relations
हैं।
with all of these
ब्रिक्स
countries.
की मदद से
With the help
हमारे
of BRICS,
द्विपक्षीय सहयोग में
new dimensions
नए
will
आयाम
be added to
अवश्य
our
जुड़ेंगे।
bilateral cooperation
जिन
also.
अन्य देशों ने भी
For the other countries
ब्रिक्स से
that
जुड़ने की
have
अभिलाषा
expressed a
व्यक्त की
desire
है,
to join BRICS,
भारत उनको भी
India will
पार्टनर कंट्रीज के रूप में
contribute
जुड़ने के
towards
लिए
building
consensus
a
बनाने में
consensus for
योगदान
them to
देगा।
be a part of BRICS as partner
Friends,
countries. Friends,
ब्रिक्स का विस्तार
the expansion
एवं
and
आधुनिकरण
modernization
इस
of
बात का
BRICS
संदेश है
is a
कि
message
विश्व के सभी
that
इंस्टीट्यूशंस को
all institutions in the
बदलते
world
समय की
need
परिस्थितियों के
to
अनुरूप
mold themselves
ढलना चाहिए।
according to changing times.
ये एक ऐसी पहल है
This is an
जो
initiative
20वीं सदी में
that can be
स्थापित
an example
अन्य ग्लोबल
for
इंस्टीट्यूशंस
reforms
के रिफॉर्म के लिए
in other
एक
global institutions
मिसाल
that
बन
were
सकता है।
established in the 20th century.
फ्रेंड्स,
friends,
अभी
just
मेरे मित्र रामाफोसा
as
जी
my
ने
friend President Ramaphosa
भारत के मून
mentioned
मिशन को लेकर के
about the moon mission
ढेरों
of
बधाइयाँ दी
India. There were so many
और
words
मैं
of
यहाँ
congratulations.
कल से अनुभव कर रहा
And
हूँ
since yesterday
हर
I
किसी
have
से
been here and
बधाइयाँ मिल
have
रही हैं
received so many
और
words of
दुनिया
congratulations
भर में
from
भी
everybody and all across the world. In fact,
इस सफलता को
this success
एक देश की सीमित सफलता के रूप में नहीं
is not
लेकिन
to be
पूरी
viewed
मानव
as
जात
the
की एक
success
महत्वपूर्ण
of
सफलता
one
के रूप
single
में
country.
स्वीकार
It is
किया
the
जा रहा है
success. It
ये
is
हम
being
सभी
accepted
लोगों
as
के
the
लिए
success of
अत्यंत
all
गर्व का विषय है
mankind. It is a
और
matter
भारत
of
के
great
वैज्ञानिकों
pride for
पूरे
us
विश्व की तरफ से
and for
अभिनंदन का
the
अवसर
Indian
है।
scientists. It's a time for appreciation
Friends,
and being commended from all across the
कल
world.
शाम
Friends,
भारत के
last evening,
चंद्रयान ने
India's Chandrayaan
चांद के दक्षिण
successfully
ध्रुव पर
made a soft
सॉफ्ट
landing
लैंडिंग की।
on the south pole of
ये
the
केवल
moon.
भारत के लिए ही नहीं
As I said,
बल्कि
this
पूरे विश्व के
is a
वैज्ञानिक
great
समुदाय के
achievement,
लिए
not only for India,
एक बहुत
but
बड़ी
also
उपलब्धि है।
for the scientific community all
और
over the world. And
जिस क्षेत्र में
the area
भारत ने अपना टारगेट तय किया था
which was identified
वहाँ
as a
पहले
target
कभी
by India is an
कोई
area
प्रयास नहीं हुआ है
where no efforts were
और ये
made
प्रयास
for
सफल
landing
हुआ
so
है।
far, and
तो बड़ा
this
difficult
effort
terrain के
has
ऊपर
been successful. In fact, the terrain
विज्ञान हमें
is
पहुंचा पाया है।
very difficult, and
ये अपने
science
आप
was
में
able to lead us to
विज्ञान
that
की
terrain.
वैज्ञानिकों
So
की
I
बड़ी
believe
सफलता
that
है।
this is a success
इस
of
ऐतिहासिक
science,
अवसर
the
पर
success of our scientists.
आप सबकी तरफ से
On this very historic
मुझे
occasion, I have
भारत को
received, India
भारत के
has
वैज्ञानिकों को
received, Indian
और
scientists
दुनिया की
have received,
वैज्ञानिक
and,
कम्युनिटी को
the
जो बधाई के
entire
संदेश मिले हैं
scientific world
मैं सार्वजनिक
of,
रूप से
the entire world
आप सबका
has received
मेरी
congratulatory
तरफ से
messages and
मेरे
notes.
देशवासियों
I
की
would
तरफ से
like to thank
और
all
मेरे
of you,
वैज्ञानिकों की
not
तरफ
only
से
from myself,
बहुत
but from
बहुत
all
धन्यवाद
Indians,
करता हूँ।
and
Thank
also
you.
on behalf of the scientists, of my Indian scientists. Thank you.
尊敬的拉马福萨总统，
President Ramaphosa,
尊敬的各位同事，
colleagues,
各位记者朋友，
friends from the press,
很高兴同大家见面。
I am pleased to join you here.
首先，
At the outset,
感谢拉马福萨
I
总统
wish to thank President
和南
Ramaphosa
非政府
and the South African
为本
government
次金砖国家领导人
for
会
the
晤
thoughtful
所
arrangements
做的
they made
周到安排。
for the BRICS summit this year.
金砖国家
BRICS countries
都是具有重要
are
影响的
all
国家，
countries with important influence
对世界和平和发展
and shoulder
肩负重要责任。
important responsibilities for world peace and
在本
development.
次会晤中，
During the summit,
我们围绕当前国际
we
形
had
势、
in-depth exchanges
金砖
on
国
the
家合
current
作等问
international
题，
situation
进
and
行了深入
BRICS
交流，
cooperation,
达成广泛共识，
reached broad
发
consensus,
表了峰会宣言，
adopted the
取得了丰
declaration,
硕成果。
and achieved fruitful outcomes.
五国领导人一致
Leaders
同
of the
意
five countries unanimously
邀
agreed
请
to
沙
invite
特、
Saudi Arabia,
埃及、
Egypt,
阿联酋、
the United Arab Emirates, Argentina,
伊朗、
Iran,
埃塞俄比亚
and
成为
Ethiopia
金砖大家庭
to
成
the
员。
BRICS family as official members.
中方对这些国家表示
China
祝贺，
congratulates these countries
对主席国南非
and highly
和拉马
appreciate
福萨总统
the
所
efforts
做出的努力
made by our
表示
chair, South
高度
Africa,
赞
and
赏。
President Ramaphosa.
这次会员是历史
This
性的，
membership expansion is historic.
体现了金砖国家
It shows the
同发
determination
展
of
中国
BRICS
家团
countries
结合作的决心，
for unity and cooperation with the broader
符合国际社
developing
会期待。
countries. It meets the expectation of the international
符合
community
新兴市场国家和
and
发
the
展中
common
国家共
interests
同利益。
of emerging market countries and developing
这
countries.
次会员
The
也给
expansion
金砖合作，
is also
也是金砖合作的新起
a
点，
new starting point for BRICS cooperation,
将给金砖合作
It
机制
will
注入
bring
新活力，
new vigor to the BRICS
进一步
cooperation
壮大世界
mechanism,
和平和发展的力量。
further strengthen the force for world
我相
peace
信
and development. I am confident as long as we work with a common purpose, there's a lot that BRICS cooperation can achieve, and the future will be bright for BRICS countries. Let us work together to write a new chapter of emerging market countries and developing countries working together in unity for development. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, it is wonderful to be in Johannesburg, and I thank the people and government of South Africa for their warm welcome. The Rainbow Nation has been an inspiration to nations everywhere, navigating their own path to reconciliation and unity. And today South Africa is a powerful champion of the calls by the Global South for greater equality and justice in international affairs. Calls the world is hearing loud and clear, and also here at the 15th BRICS Summit. My message to the leaders assembled here was clear. Our world is in dire straits. We face existential challenges, from the worsening climate emergency and escalating conflicts to the global cost of living crisis, soaring inequalities, and dramatic technological disruptions. So this is a time to come together and to work together. But instead, divisions are growing and tensions are rising. Several factors contribute to these divisions. Diverging perspectives on global crises, contrasting approaches to non-traditional security threats, different strategies towards new technologies, and of course, the consequences of COVID-19 and the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And I remain deeply concerned over the risk of a fracturing of the global order. We are entering a multipolar world, but history has shown time and again that multipolarity without strong multilateral institutions is no guarantee for stability. It might even become a catalyst for chaos. So we must urgently restore trust and reinvigorate multilateralism. And this requires the courage to compromise for the common good. It requires effective international institutions rooted in 21st century realities based on the UN Charter and international law. And as I emphasized today at the summit, it requires a special focus on Africa. The Security Council, the Bretton Woods system, and other international organizations reflect the world of 1945, when many African countries were still part of European empires. To this day, the continent is underrepresented in the global financial architecture, just as it lacks a permanent seat on the Security Council. The world has changed, and so global governance must change with it. It must represent today's power and economic relations, and not the power and economic relations of 1945. And that is why I've been advocating deep reforms to make global frameworks truly universal and representative of today's realities and more responsive to the needs of developing economies. We need more inclusive institutions at every level, including through greater representation of women and young people. But all this in a context in which I believe two areas require a particularly important reform effort. One is the Security Council, the second, the Bretton Woods system. If we are not able to reform our institutions and make sure that they reassume a truly universal character, we risk fragmentation, and fragmentation can be, one day, a factor of confrontation. And we also need, in each society, a new social contract based on respect for all human rights, social, cultural, economic, civil, and political. And finally, we need to act in solidarity and with greater urgency in several future defining areas. And allow me to refer some of them. First, action to save our planet. Developed countries have a particular responsibility, and so they must lead and they must deliver. On $100 billion promised to developing countries, on the loss and damage fund, on doubling adaptation finance, on replenishing the Green Climate Fund, and on plans for early warning systems to protect every person in the world, including 6 in 10 Africans who still lack those systems. As a matter of justice, Africa must be considered a priority in all these crucial commitments. Every country has a role to play. That is why I propose the Climate Solidarity Pact, in which all big emitters make extra efforts to cut emissions and wealthier countries support emerging economies to do so. And I have put forward an acceleration agenda to supercharge these efforts in order to guarantee that we maintain the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit as a reality. So it's time to break our addiction to fossil fuels and to invest in a just and equitable transition. And we must bring affordable electricity to everyone on Earth, and particularly in Africa, while simultaneously reaching net zero electricity by 2035 in developed countries and 2040 elsewhere. I commend South Africa for stepping up as pioneers of the Just Transition Energy Partnership, a crucial tool to unlock emission cuts, boost renewables, and grow the green economy. Second, we need action to save economies and reduce inequalities. The pandemic has underscored once again how the global financial architecture is outdated, dysfunctional, and unjust. It has failed in its basic function as a global safety net, and so it needs deep structural reform. But I also know that such change will not happen overnight, and so I have proposed a number of measures we can take right now, and they include providing Sustainable Development Goals stimulus to direct investments towards the Sustainable Development Goals, with a funding equivalent of $500 billion, overhauling the business models of multilateral development banks so that they massively increase affordable financing and leverage far more private finance to the developing world, including also the need to increase their own capital, establishing an effective debt workout mechanism to support payment suspensions, longer lending terms, and lower rates. The debt situation in many African countries, as well as in many other parts of the developing world, is today absolutely intolerable. The majority of African countries pay more of their budget in interests for the debt than in education or in health. And so we need to make sure that there is an effective debt reduction mechanism in place. Until now, what we had is too little and too late. We also need to make international tax cooperation more inclusive and more effective so countries can support each other in generating financing for sustainable development and working together to stop illicit financial flows that are draining vital resources from the African continent. Taken together, these steps will go a long way in equipping developing economies in Africa and beyond with the means to invest in key transitions across energy, education, digital, health, and more. So, ladies and gentlemen of the media, the months ahead will be vital, from the Africa Climate Summit, where I will be in Nairobi in 2 weeks' time, the G20 Summit, to the SDG and Climate Ambition Summits at the United Nations in September, to COP28 in December. We have important opportunities to set a path to a better, more peaceful, and more just world. And we have no time to lose, and I thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Take a few questions. Sipa, ENCA right there. Let me give it the microphone.
Thank you. Sipa Gagoge from ENCA here in South Africa. I'm this side Secretary General. Your calls for reforms of the financial institutions globally and the UN Security Council are falling on deaf ears. What needs to be done to change that? What is your position on the calls and proposals to de-dollarize the global economy?
I don't think there are being only listened by deaf ears. I remember when I became Secretary General that the discussion of the reform of the Bretton Woods system was a taboo within the UN system. Today, this is in the center of our debates, and we have presented recently a policy brief with a proposal, a concrete proposal for the reform of the Bretton Woods system. And I think that more and more countries understand that this needs to be done. And there are two reasons for that. First, because the system became too small. The paid-in capital of the World Bank is $22 billion US. The volume of operations of the World Bank today as a percentage of global GDP is less than 1/5 of what it was in 1960. And it is clear that as a lender of last resort, the IMF has today an enormous difficulty to take into account the global dimension of the crisis we are facing. So the system became small. It needs to grow. And as it needs to grow, there is an opportunity to make it really universal, to make sure that it reflects in its capital structure and in its work the reality of today's world. And I think that this will be sooner or later inevitable. Because if it doesn't happen, we will inevitably see parallel systems emerging, and the risks of fragmentation of the global economy and the financial structures are, in my opinion, extremely dangerous for the global economy. And also, if those risks of fragmentation deepen, they can become beacons of confrontation in the future. So I think it's in the interest of everybody, not only developing countries, but of the developed countries. It's in the interest of everybody to adapt the Bretton Woods system as the Security Council and as other international institutions to the reality of today's world.
Thank you. Julie, AFP, you can stand up, please.
Thank you. Julie Baudin for AFP News Agency. I'd like to know the UN's position on the inclusion of certain... Can you hear me? The UN's position on the inclusion of certain countries today in the BRICS that might have been accused repeatedly of human rights violations. If that's something that is worrying and shows also a move away from the liberal world order.
Well, I was very clear today, saying that one of the basic principles of multilateralism must be the full respect by everybody of all human rights, economic, social, and cultural, political, and civil. And it is not acceptable to say that if economic and social rights are respected, we don't need to respect civil and political rights. No. And it is also not right to say, as we respect civil and political rights, we don't need to take care of economic and social rights. So I think there is a new synthesis of human rights that is necessary, and I hope, and again, many things come, according to some, into deaf ears. I hope that the ears will also not be deaf in relation to this appeal that I make. There is no international order that works if that order is not based in the UN Charter, in international law, and in human rights.
Thank you. The young woman there, all the way here. Please, yeah.
Good afternoon, Secretary General. My name is Ndebo Mukobo. I'm from the South African Broadcasting Corporation, in short, the SABC. Secretary General, you are very clear on your call for the reform of the multilateral institutions, in particular the UN Security Council. But this is not a new call. Your past predecessors, the late Kofi Annan, as well as Ban Ki-moon, have called for the reform of this institution. Is there a political will from this august institution to realize the reforms? And this has become a wishful thinking, really, for African leaders and a lullaby to the African masses, because it's not happening 78 years into the existence of this institution. There's never 70th anniversary. There was a call. It was from Africa again. It was very robust, calling for the reform of this institution, but it hasn't happened even until today. Is there political will, sir?
Well, I can make no promises on things that do not depend on me. They depend on member states. But some things are changing. First, as you know, the General Assembly has decided that whenever a country uses the veto, that country needs to go to the General Assembly to explain the reasons of the veto. It is a small step, but in any case, it would be inconceivable a few years ago. There was every year a working group on the reform of the Security Council. That working group was never based on written texts, and there was never any readout of its work. That has changed. And I believe that when talking and when listening, because I'm referring to what was said by President Biden, by Lavrov, and by the other members of the Security Council, I think that all 5 permanent members today agree that at least there must be one seat for African countries in the Security Council. I haven't seen any opposition in the P5 in relation to this. That is probably the most obvious injustice in the Security Council composition. So, I mean, we are not yet there, but things are starting to move in a different way, and I'm hopeful that the reform of the Security Council will become a strong element in the agenda of our discussions next year.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Yvonne Katane from LN24 SA, and my question is centered mainly on the climate change. I realize that the summit, at the center stage of the summit, climate change was like top of the agenda. My question then is climate change a reality or it's a hoax? We've seen fires breaking out, we've heard a statement saying that we've now reached a stage of global boiling, and then even the fires in Maui, Hawaii, the fires that are happening in Canada are highly questionable. We are also seeing food silos, grain being targeted. It's as if climate change is being weaponized. So my question to you, SG, is that, is climate change a reality, or is this a hoax? Is the world under attack because of this climate change? And is it being pushed by the globalists? Thank you.
Well, look at how Greenland is losing ice at record levels. Look how the Antarctica is losing ice at record levels. Look how glaciers are receding everywhere in a dramatic way. Look how fires are becoming much more intense and much more devastating. Look at heat waves in many countries in the world, even very far from the equator. Look at the multiplication and intensification of hurricanes, cyclones, and other devastating weather incidents. It is clear for the whole of the scientific community that all these things do not happen by chance. All these things happen in a trend, and that trend accompanies what has been the global warming and all the impacts of global warming. So if there is something I am absolutely sure in my political action as an international public servant, is that climate action is a decisive priority in our action, and climate change became the defining issue of our planet.
Thank you very much.